Good evening and thanks for joining us for special coverage of tonight's general election.
We're monitoring major races and several important measures on the line tonight. We have live team coverage, making sure you're up to date with the latest results as they come in. And we're hearing from people in the community and how those results are affecting them. We start with the Seattle City Council, where 7 of the 9 council seats are up for grabs tonight in District 1. Marin Costa facing off against Rob Saka. You can see Saka with 59% of the vote.
And take a look at this in District 2. Tanya Wu challenging incumbent Tammy Morales for her seat. Tanya at 54% and Tammy, they're at 45%.
Joy Hollingsworth is up against Alex Hudson for District 3's council seat. Both are looking to replace Kashama Sawant, who is not running again. Take a look. Joy Hollingsworth ahead, 58% to Hudson's 41%.
And in District 4, Ron Davis looking to hold off Maritza Rivera. And you can see Maritza there with about a 10-point lead, 11-point lead, depending on how you shake it out there. But quite a bit ahead of Ron at this point.
Kathy Moore and Christiana Obi-Subner are facing off in District 5. Kathy Moore running away with the early lead, 70% to 29%.
Over in District 6, incumbent Dan Strauss challenged by Pete Hanning. And you can see Pete just a little bit ahead there by just a couple percentage points there. A little bit less than about 400 votes, maybe separating the two there. But this is a big one here in Seattle.
And Bob Kettle looking to unseat incumbent Andrew Lewis in District 7. Take a look. Early results. Again, very early. Kettle ahead 56%. Andrew Lewis falling behind 44%. We'll be sure to keep you updated as more results continue to come in, both on the air and online. Now, one of the few races featuring an incumbent is District 7, which you just saw includes downtown Seattle. Andrew Lewis is fighting to keep his seat. KOMO senior reporter Chris Daniels is at challenger Bob Kettle's party at Pike Place Market and joins us live now. Chris?
Yeah, hi, Mary. They are celebrating here at Kel's Irish Pub at Pike Place Market with that lead for Bob Kettle of 12 points over the incumbent Andrew Lewis. The headline already tonight is all 3 Seattle City Council members that are running for re-election are losing. Andrew Lewis by far right now at the worst margin, as you just noted, by a couple of thousand votes. Bob Kettle not declaring victory. A big story right now as we stand here tonight is just the voter turnout in a lot of precincts, just over 20%. The King County Elections Department is expecting closer to 45%, but that is county-wide. So we can already tell you the numbers are down. And I asked Bob Kettle before the numbers dropped what he thought exactly about the percentage of people who have dropped off their ballots. What do you think it says about how people feel about the state of this city, that we're not seeing the turnout? It doesn't look like that we saw 4 years ago.
You know, I know that, and it's one of these things, like, what drives it? I'm not sure. Obviously, you know, the issues that are facing the city are very important, from public safety, public health, and homelessness. So I know these issues are key and important to people. But to explain the turnout, that's another, someone else would have to answer that question.
And he referenced that with supporters here, but he did raise a beer. He's now talking with them, a very celebratory mood. We have already seen Seattle Council member Sarah Nelson, the city attorney Ann Davison are in this room. They were cheering the results because all of those candidates right now in all of the 7 races seem to fall in the moderate or pro-public safety side of the specter. Of course, we have seen over time how these elections can turn as more ballots come in. But right now, tonight, all 3 Seattle City incumbents running for re-election are losing, and it appears that the moderate or business-backed candidates are winning. Back to you.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. Let's dig deeper into that. KOMO political analyst Ron Dotzar with Strategies 360 is back to break down these early city council election results.
And we also want to include Chris in this conversation as well. But Ron, let's start with this. I know we hear kind of a wow, you know, overwhelmingly. Anything surprise you here, or this is kind of what you were expecting?
Well, Kai, we talked about it earlier this evening. What we've seen here is that money matters. And all the candidates, the top 6 money fundraisers, both by the independent expenditures as well as fundraisers, are all winning. And they also were winning in the categories against the incumbents. So it's not particularly surprising when you see, because the margins of the money was pretty substantial. So, boy, if this holds, we will see. I mean, that is a major earthquake at City Hall, really, because you'll have 7 brand new potential city council members. Everybody tried to find the bathroom, and then you may have an eighth one who, if the one Mosqueda wins a council seat, which he's expected to do, there'll be eighth. And so, my goodness, that was it's not completely surprising, but it's still, at the end of the day, to have this kind of turnover on a city council the size of Seattle, yeah, it's surprising.
You know, I'd like to bring Chris back into this conversation. Chris, you were talking about the celebratory mood over there with Bob Kettle's campaign, but we have seen these instances before with previous elections where the first numbers come out, it looks like the political newcomer is ahead, and then things change very, very quickly the next day. Would you describe the mood there as cautiously optimistic, or is there a real solid feeling that this could be the beginning of a new trend?
Well, I think you look at the numbers and the margin right now, just in terms of percentage points. Anybody that's ahead, that's a more moderate or business-backed candidate that we have seen in the past, they need to at least have a 10-point lead on election night. So if you go down the roster here, Kathy Moore appears to be safe in D5, where there's a lot of old Seattle. I guess you could label that part of the city with a lot of older homeowners and homeowners in that part of North Seattle. But then you start going down the list and you look at what has happened here in D7 downtown. Andrew Lewis was the leader in the primary, but he was still under 50%. He's losing right now by 12 points. You look at the margin in D3, that is where we've seen significant swings in the past, where Shama Sawant has been in power for the last decade. And right now, by my count, that is a double-digit lead for Joy Hollingsworth. She is well ahead. Maritza Rivera in D4 also has a large lead there by 11 points. Those are a couple of districts where we have seen over time progressives get a lot of the late votes. So I would expect, even though there's a large margin in D3 and D4 tonight, that is going to tighten up as the ballots come in, particularly on Thursday. I think Thursday is when we're going to be able to read the tea leaves here. But I think for anybody that, as Ron just alluded to, that had large backing, particularly from the business community, they are very happy, and that is why they are cranking the music here at Pike Place Market right now.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. Thanks, Ron.
Yeah, you bet.
Tonight's election results could have a major impact on the future of public safety here in Seattle. The council members who ran for re-election defended their records on public safety, while some challengers said the council put the city into crisis mode. Now, of course, we're seeing major police shortage and increasing crime and out-of-control homeless encampments. KOMO's Jeremy Harris live tonight at City Hall. And Jeremy, crime and safety could determine the outcome of tonight's election.
No, without a question, as we're seeing those early results, it seems to have had at least some effect. You know, Ron described that earthquake at City Hall, where that's where we are tonight, and we're watching those election results come in, because this is going to have a huge impact on the leaders of the city and the future direction of public safety. Now, since coming to office, Mayor Harrell has said that he has wanted to increase public safety and be more focused on trying to get more police officers back onto the street, and also he's had good support from the council, at least in the last year, in doing that. But the council has not followed through on everything the mayor has asked for. Things like that gunfire detection technology, that was taken out of the last year's budget that was approved by the council. So whether the council is going to be more aligned with the mayor moving forward still may be too early to tell. But one thing that is sure, and we talked tonight with Jim Feuda from Crime Stoppers about this, he was telling us that public safety is the defining issue of this year's election. How will the last council go down in terms of Seattle history?
I think it's a real failure. It's just, you can see it in the streets. No matter what side, left or right, that you stand on, everybody wants public safety.
From here out, though, all eyes are going to be on what does the council do, what direction do they take. One of the big issues is going to be police staffing. As we've reported extensively, the Seattle Police Department right now is at about a 30-year low in terms of the number of police officers out on the street. It's something we hear almost every day from business owners, from residents here. They say they're concerned that there simply is not enough public safety infrastructure in Seattle to keep up with the crime, the safety, the homeless encampments, and there's just concern about the district. We've even seen tonight multiple instances of violence that have happened just in the city. So obviously that's a big issue, so we're going to keep a close eye on that as well. And for right now, things obviously very quiet at City Hall. They wrapped up a council meeting just a few hours ago, but certainly a busy night for city politics.
All right, thanks, Jeremy. And what Jeremy's alluding to as we bring Ron back in, we've got a stabbing at 3rd and Pine tonight. We've got another shooting in North Seattle. Voters, it appears as though right now aren't going to take any more of this. And you're talking about a sweep. What kind of sweep are you talking about possibly here, Ron?
We're talking a sweep for moderates who want to do something about policing, okay? And they almost every one of these candidates, when you look at their platforms, they are so strong on what are we going to do about crime in the city of Seattle? What are we going to do about the homelessness on the streets? And what we're seeing is a potential moderate sweep that's going to change. And what the big winner tonight could be the police department. And they're looking, the public has said by their votes, our earlier poll said 70% disapproval rating city council. And so they're throwing out looks like the incumbents are in trouble. 2 of them may be in real trouble. And then you've got the moderates sweeping the rest of the positions. It's a really big indictment of what's been going on in City Hall and saying, we now want to change. We want a cataclysmic major change in how we're going to do business at City Hall.
Well, imagine the police department, the mayor, and the city council being able to work together and come up with a solution to make Seattle a safe place again.
You know, we haven't seen that in years, honestly. And here's an opportunity. We'll see how this all plays out. Again, we have to be, the caveat is, you know, we've got some early votes here, but some of these are, as Chris was pointing out, some large margins. And so those will be more challenging to turn around. So if I were in that moderate category and really looking at what we're going to do about crime in our streets and so forth, I would feel emboldened tonight that the city is speaking out very clearly and very loudly what they're looking for in their future.
Incredible.
All right, thank you. Well, voters in Seattle also deciding on an important issue that affects affordable housing within the city. Proposition 1 is on the ballot. If approved, that measure would replace the expiring Seattle housing levy and provide funds for housing for low-income households. KOMO's Hannah Knowles is live in Capitol Hill, where a group of supporters are gathering as those results come in. Hannah?
Hey there. Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell just made a rousing speech in support of the $970 million housing levy that would raise taxes over the next 7 years to support assistance for more than 9,500 families. Now, we know there's been a lot of support for this levy. The mayor, the council, business members, as well as social service leaders, they have all endorsed the effort, even if it means tripling the existing housing levy. As for those against it, today we caught up with Roger Valdez, the only listed opponent in the official King County Voters Guide. He says, though doubtful it will fail, he still wants to see accountability and a solid plan from the city to address the housing crisis.
If you want to solve the problem, vote no. Demand better answers. Otherwise, you're not going to see anything change. I promise you that.
The accountability is with the numbers at the end of the day. But the good news is, in the last campaign, the levy actually built more housing units than promised.
The levy spread focusing on housing services for low-income households, seniors, families, people with disabilities, and people experiencing homelessness. Matt Griffin says, though the nearly $1 billion, it might not be able to fix the entirety of the problem, he still believes it's a much-needed start. You can see here a pretty large crowd. We're in Capitol Hill at Stoop Brewing, and they say they will continue to be here in support as those numbers continue to come in. It is still early in the night, but we'll be posting those results right here on KOMO News. Live in Capitol Hill, Hannah Knowles, back to you. All
right, Hannah, thank you. And Ron, talking about Proposition 1 earlier during the evening newscast, you said this is something that most people seem to approve of.
Yeah, it had endorsement of both, the local newspaper, but a lot of the opinion leaders in Seattle and check writers in Seattle were all very supportive of this. And what it does, basically, it renews the housing levy that's terminating. It'll cost about $970 million. It's more expensive, but it seems to have a round of support. I don't know if haven't seen the numbers yet on the actual results, but it felt like there's a lot of momentum behind it because people want to invest in helping folks that are disadvantaged, that don't have access to housing. Housing was a big issue during our research as
I
well.
think those numbers are going to come in here in a second. We can go ahead and look at that
Yeah.
full screen. Here are the
There we
numbers
go.
here. So
Yeah.
you're right, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Almost, over 2/3 of the voters are at the yes. That's not going to change much. And so I'm not, again, I expected this would happen, and there was no real serious opposition to it. And it's the kind of investment that Seattleites like to make for their quality of life as well.
Yeah, you see that when these kind of votes come around, even if it costs people an additional, I don't know, 20, 30 bucks a month, maybe on average, maybe
Yep.
a little bit more.
Yep.
It seems like people want to do that kind of thing to see if it will help and maybe get some people off the streets, help some seniors, et cetera.
And this was also a big vote because the mayor had put a lot of skin in this game.
Yeah.
And so this was something he had really proposed. The council moved it along to the ballot, and he was able to rally the troops behind it and get the resources necessary. And again, it plays into the character of who Seattle anyway is to begin with. And so the 2/3 yes vote and the investments are not surprising. And hopefully it'll all work, and those investments will help people that need the help.
Absolutely. We're also keeping an eye on several council races in King County. In District 4, Jorge Barone is facing off against Sarah Reineveld. And take a look. Barone ahead 56% to Reineveld's 43%. And in District 8, Councilwoman Teresa Mosqueda is facing off against the City of Berean's Mayor, Sophia Aragon. This is a close one. Mosqueda just 1 percentage point ahead of Aragon with the early results.
All right, so that race for King County's District 8 seat is shaping up to be an important one. If Councilwoman Teresa Mosqueda wins her seat on Seattle City Council, will be up for grabs. KOMO senior reporter Chris Daniels joining us live once again. Chris, what can you tell us about this race?
Well, the Mosqueda race is interesting because it is potentially an 8th Seattle City Council seat that would be up for grabs. But you just mentioned it is a dead heat right now with this first ballot drop on election night. And there has been a question just based on the results on Tuesday night, how Teresa Mosqueda would go forward at the Seattle City Council. She did extremely well in the primary, winning that race by more than 20 points against Sophia Aragon, but it is obviously closer this evening. So what does this mean in the next couple of days? How does she react at Seattle City Hall? If there is a slate of pro-public safety, more moderate candidates, will that impact when potentially she would give up her seat if she is elected? These are all the questions that are just around that 8th district seat in King County because of the stakes in the city of Seattle. I was also looking at some of the numbers in Seattle compared to 4 years ago. There's a question already tonight about voter turnout and the fact that a lot of these districts are only in the 20% or so range. But if you look at the ballot totals from election night 4 years ago, they're right in the same ballpark in the matter of thousands. In fact, Joy Hollingsworth in District 3 actually had a really good night in terms of percentage points, almost hitting the 60 mark. And even if we go back 2 years ago to Mayor Bruce Harrell and Councilmember Sarah Nelson's election, they were at 60% or more on election night. So that seems to be a good number, a good percentage point if you are running for office right now in the city of Seattle. And there are a lot of candidates right now, including Rob Saka, Joy Hollingsworth, Kathy Moore, and Bob Kettle, that all are near that magic mark, it appears, to move forward out of this election cycle. Back to you.
Chris, don't go anywhere. KOMO News political analyst Ron Dotzauer, Strategies 360, joining us in tonight. And also we're bringing back in KOMO senior reporter Chris Daniels joining in the conversation as he's back out live at that location tonight.
So, Ron, I'd like to start with this. I mean, we're talking about potential a major city council makeover.
Yes.
All right. So so many new faces, so many political newcomers at the table now. How are they going to mesh with the mayor? With each other, with one another? All were promising significant change, and now they got to work together.
Yeah, and they're kindred spirits of sorts. When you look at their policy positions for these candidates that have been, at this point, successful tonight, they have a lot in common, more in common. Again, sometimes personalities and other issues will come into play here. But in terms of the policy stuff, they seem to be moving in the same direction, which I think is going to be the healthiest we've seen in this city for a long, long time. I was chuckling a little bit earlier. I was a little surprised because Mosqueda had such a big lead in the primary that she's in jeopardy of not winning because everybody expects she's going to be on the city council. I mean, the King County Council. If she comes back to the city council, she's going to be pretty lonesome. Okay, there's going to be a lot of 8-to-1 votes on that city council. It's a different composition. She's probably hoping like heck tonight she does win that King County Council seat.
Can you ever remember a time where there may have been a situation where that kind of vote, an 8-to-1 vote on the city council here in Seattle, ever took place?
No, and again, this is a very significant evening. Again, caveat, numbers hold up. There seems to be a lot of robust margins here, except in one council race. This is a really draconian political shifting of the guards in the city of Seattle. And I don't want to overstate that, but it is a big deal. And we're going to see the different policy shifts, and the mayor is going to have a council that he can work with, okay? And maybe there's an opportunity to change that 70% negative, and they can move that number down and get a little more positive thing going. And if they address some of the issues that the city and the voters want to see, that's what they're saying tonight. The voters are telling us what they want to see for the future of this city. They're tired of what's been going on in the future and the bickering and the 50% reduction in police officers and all the rest of that garbage. They want to see a city that's getting things done.
All right, Chris, I know you have covered City Hall extensively. Any early word on early reaction from the mayor's office on these early numbers?
Well, I would tell you, Mary, that I think Mayor Bruce Harrell is pleased with what has happened so far tonight. He endorsed 5 candidates, his slate of candidates in this election, and that is Joy Hollingsworth, Dan Strauss, Kathy Moore, Rob Saka, Maritza Rivera. 4 of the 5 are winning comfortably. Dan Strauss could very well end up winning that race. It is too close to call on a night like this, and just a very narrow margin. And that was a district, I would point out, where they had the highest voter turnout of any district. As you know, there's a lot of old Seattleites, a lot of homeowners. Those are the people who tend to vote early in a civic election in the city of Seattle. So we could see a late push if history is any sort of guide for Dan Strauss. So if that was to happen and these results were to hold in the other 4 races, that would be a clean sweep for Mayor Bruce Harrell. I can tell you, standing in this room when the numbers came down, Councilmember Sarah Nelson, who has been a very pro-public safety council member. She was the one who introduced the original drug possession ordinance. I've never seen her jump up and down. She jumped up and down in this room when she saw the results. She's happy because she believes that if these results hold, there will be more people on her side on the council, and that's a potential seismic shift on the second floor at Seattle City Hall.
Big shift, no doubt, especially when you see downtown the way it is, and how many people would just love to be able to walk downtown and not have to worry about a thing. Eventually, one day, maybe that's a possibility.
Well, yes, it is. And it is a real possibility, but you got to have the right leadership to put that in place. And we needed a change at the city council to put that in place. The other thing, even if Strauss were to win, he is not a part of the sort of the way left of center. He's more of a pragmatic politician, I think, than the other 2 incumbents that are losing tonight. And because he switched his vote on the drug possession legislation as well. So
it might also depend on how other people are leaning as well. It might be influential.
Exactly. So I think if he were to get reelected, I don't know that he would be part of the problem. I think he'd be part of the solution with the rest of them. We'll see. But that's probably about the only race that's really in doubt tonight in some respects.
All right, thank you. Well, turning our attention to Tacoma, where voters are deciding Proposition 1, the tax levy that funds emergency medical services. Right now, take a look. 49% are voting for it. 51% say no. If approved, Prop 1 would increase the EMS levy from 28 cents per $100,000 of assessed value to 50 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. The money generated would provide EMS with funds for training and equipment. It would also pay for the out-of-pocket ambulance transport cost to the Tacoma Fire Department for all residents of Tacoma. The new tax would come to approximately $246 a year for the average homeowner, but currently failing.
And we also have the latest results coming in from 2 Snohomish County races. Let's take a look at those right now. Challenger Bob Hagelin is looking to keep Dave Summers from serving his 3rd and final term as county executive. You can see Dave Summers there, 61% to that 38%, about 26,000 or so votes, 25,000 or so votes. Dave Summers is ahead by, and it is a tight race between 2 experienced candidates for Snohomish County Sheriff. But look at this. Susanna Johnson leading Adam Fortney, the incumbent, by about 4 percentage points. Still very early, about 5,000 votes separating the two. But wow, what a night so far, Mary.
Oh, absolutely. And we want to thank you for joining us for this special coverage of tonight's general election.
Be sure to stay with KOMO News for the latest results and details on this election night. For more information on candidates and results, scan the QR code there on your screen. That'll take you to our website, komonews.com. Our coverage doesn't end here. Tune in tonight for KOMO News at 11 p.m. for the very latest election results.